Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting to discuss the major maintenance of Cypress Creek and its tributaries project. This virtual community meeting is being offered by the Flood Control District to continue to gather your input on flood risk reduction efforts in your area. Community engagement is a critical component of our work, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. My name is Sheldra Brigham, and I'm with the Flood Control District's communications team. I'm joined tonight by a team of Flood Control District leadership and subject matter experts as we ensure to keep you up to date on these important flood mitigation efforts. We're glad to see the community so engaged with this program, and we look forward to gathering your feedback tonight. Moving forward, we will continue to share updates on this and other projects in your area to keep you involved and informed. First, we would like to begin tonight's meeting with remarks from Harris County Precinct 1 Commissioner Rodney Ellis.
I'm Rodney Ellis. On behalf of Harris County Precinct 1 and the Flood Control District, welcome to this informative meeting about significant flood control projects in your area. As always, we have you in mind when we design projects to mitigate flooding to protect your homes and businesses. We want to be transparent with all projects because we cannot do it without your participation. Every community, regardless of the zip code, deserves increased protection from flooding. That's why equity is our guiding principle in assigning our infrastructure investments. In addition, we're prioritizing communities that are most vulnerable to flooding and have historically taken the longest to recover. Let me thank flood control officials for developing this and other projects across Harris County. Most importantly, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to participate in this community meeting tonight. We know you could have been somewhere else doing something else, but we're glad you're here. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Ellis. Next, we will hear remarks from Harris County Precinct 3 Commissioner Tom Ramsey.
Howdy, and thank you for your time tonight. Flooding is one of the problems Harris County has been plagued with far too long. With each storm and rain event, we're faced with the reality that our infrastructure needs, including maintenance, are challenged. And as an engineer, I believe innovation and partnerships are key to solutions we need to ensure flood resiliency. It is so important that we continue to work together with Flood Control District to bring projects to your area for the safety of you and your loved ones. We at Precinct 3 are also doing our part in conducting regular maintenance throughout your area to include desilting ditches, storm debris removal, road reconstruction, right-of-way mowing, and much, much more. I encourage you to visit our website and please submit your service request you may have in your area. There you'll also find Precinct 3 news and activities happening within our parks and community centers. As always, thank you for attending today's meeting, and we look forward to hearing from you about this project. We are here to serve you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Now, this virtual public meeting will begin with a presentation to share program updates, including an overview of the major maintenance of Cypress Creek and its tributaries, timelines, and next steps. The presentation will be followed by a virtual question and answer session with Flood Control District team members, where we'll respond to your questions and comment on some of the frequently asked questions that we receive from the public. Attendees will be able to submit a comment via the website and also by phone. And any comments not addressed during the Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the close of the comment period. Instructions on how you can participate in this virtual meeting are included on this slide, on the virtual meeting webpage, and on the Flood Control District's website. And I will also share a reminder of these instructions when we get to the Q&A portion of tonight's meeting. We will now transition to Jason Cron, the Director of Infrastructure for the Flood Control District, who will share information about the organization and then more about this program. Jason?
Thank you, Sheldra, and I'd like to give a special thanks to each and everyone out there tonight. Your involvement with us is extremely appreciated, and it only enhances our efforts. In tonight's presentation, we'll provide an overview of our program efforts in the Cypress Creek watershed. But before we get to that information, we want to share a bit of background about the Flood Control District. You go back a slide, please. There we go. All right, the Flood Control District is a special purpose district that was created by Texas State Legislature in 1937 as response to the devastating floods that hit our region in 1929 and 1935. The Flood Control District is governed by the Harris County Commissioners Court and works closely with other public works entities in our region, such as the Harris County Engineering Department and the City of Houston. Our organization was created in part to serve as a local partner and project sponsor to leverage federal funding for flood damage reduction projects in our region. Since our creation, our mission has expanded, leading to billions of dollars in federal, state, and locally funded infrastructure improvements being made. The Flood Control District's mission is to provide flood damage reduction projects that work with appropriate regard for community and natural values. Understanding that our systems mean many things to many people makes it challenging to construct effective projects that also provide the multifunctional use communities seek, as well as construct them with regard to natural values in our highly urbanized and continuously growing region. Harris County includes 23 main watersheds, comprising approximately 1,800 square miles of land and more than 2,500 linear miles of channel. This includes man-made channels, natural streams, creeks, and bayous. To imagine the totality of this infrastructure, please note that 2,500 miles is approximately the distance between New York to California. The 23 watersheds are all distinct geographical regions of land that serve as a catchment area that drains to a common main channel or drainage outlet. Each watershed has its own unique characteristics and needs based on its level of maturity and geographical location. The program and projects we are presenting tonight are in the Cypress Creek watershed located in Northwest Harris County. Harris County and its surrounding area is flood prone for a number of reasons, namely because we experience extreme rainfall events along the Texas coast, including tropical storms and hurricanes. Our area has a largely flat topography or elevation with slow draining land. And finally, because we have large concentrations of soil types, such as clays, that do not soak up excessive rainfall quickly. While the Flood Control District plays a critical role in the overall flood risk reduction for our area, we are one of several jurisdictional entities involved in the overall efforts for the region. Please imagine, when rain falls on your roof or other impervious cover, it flows through several jurisdictions, such as public and private driveways, parking lots and yards, and eventually into streets and drains managed by the Harris County Engineering Department or a municipal utility district or city, such as the City of Houston, before it flows into a larger basin, channel, or creek that the Flood Control District owns and maintains. This slide illustrates the various jurisdictions which sometimes we share with other entities. Inside neighborhoods, as shown on the left side of the illustration, storm sewers and roadside ditches collect stormwater runoff and start the process of moving it away from homes and streets. Storm sewers, drains, roadside ditches, and outfalls are all the responsibility of the underlying municipality. The larger bayous and channels that take collected stormwater and convey it through our drainage network to Galveston Bay are the responsibility of the Flood Control District. This can be seen on the right side of the illustration. In the middle of the illustration is a stormwater detention basin that may have been constructed by the flood control district. When storm sewer drainage networks on the left side of the illustration are increased in size, it creates an increase in the runoff placed within our systems. Since it is our policy to avoid adverse impacts from our project construction, detention basins are built to help safely take in the increased volume of stormwater and temporarily store it before and during heavy rains. Often we partner with Harris County precincts, municipal utility districts, and other entities to allow these sponsors to add and maintain recreational amenities such as trails to these basins and channels, which allows the multifunctional community use that they're looking for. On August 25th, 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion in bond funding for flood risk reduction projects. This vote happened after a series of 23 meetings were held with community members across Harris County, which comes to one per watershed. This resulted in a list that makes up the now 181 bond projects being funded. A total of more than $1.35 billion in partnership funding has been secured thus far to progress the 2018 bond program even further. The actual schedule of each individual bond project will depend on a variety of factors, including the overall project planning, design, and construction life cycles. Some tasks included in these life cycles, such as environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocation, or in some cases, partner funding requirements for a particular grant, may extend the time it takes to complete the overall schedule of the project. Project list and estimated schedules are updated regularly on our website. As our bond projects move forward, we're making significant progress towards added resiliency in Harris County. An update shared with Harris County Commissioners Court in January of this year highlighted a few of the stats. 27 projects completed or closed. $1.43 billion in partnership funding has been secured to maximize the bond funds for our community. And more than 180 community engagement meetings have been hosted, ensuring conversations with you continue. Your continued participation and input is critical to our efforts, and we appreciate it. We'll continue these biannual updates moving forward to share progress on the overall bond program. While the voter bond was for $2.5 billion, the full cost of every project in our bond project is almost $5 billion. So we made it clear from the start that we would need funding partners to obtain the full potential of the constructed projects in the bond program. As I've mentioned, we had some success so far by securing more than $1.35 billion in partner funds for projects across Harris County. And as this graphic illustrates, there are many partnership opportunity sources, including federal, state, and local funding that the Flood Control District is working to secure for Harris County. Each agency has its own definition of an eligible project, as well as its own requirements for local match funding. So the Flood Control District works diligently to match each project to the appropriate partnership opportunity. Switching gears, we will now discuss the portion of the program that is specific to the Cypress Creek watershed and the major tributary maintenance associated with the Cypress Creek and Tributaries project. As a reminder, we are looking for your participation as we discuss this portion of the program in more detail. So please feel free to drop any questions or comments you have into the comment box, or to comment via phone by pushing the star key. There are 159 miles of waterways in the Cypress Creek watershed, The map to the right shows all the tributaries that flow into the main stem of Cypress Creek, which is shown with a bold blue line. The programmatic project we are talking about tonight will restore conveyance within the Cypress Creek drainage network by conducting general channel repairs, erosion repairs, sediment removal and disposal, and other maintenance activities. To start with, the Flood Control District completed field assessments of all waterways in the Cypress Creek watershed to determine the state of the waterways and the scope of the work needed for each. We then took the overall scope of work needed for the entire watershed and broke it down into batches to maximize the number of work crews and the scope of work being completed. These batches include specific projects that were grouped together by geographical location or other scope factors for maximizing our efforts. We estimate that 5 batches of maintenance work can be funded through the current allocation, and we'll talk about the status of each of those batches shortly. This programmatic effort had an initial budget of $60 million, which came from the 2018 bond program. Since then, there has been an additional $60.2 million of potential funds from the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT funding programs that we will discuss later in the presentation. It's important to note these efforts will restore the waterways, including the main stem and tributaries, to their originally designed conveyance capacity without expanding or making them larger, with the exception of efforts to take place included in batch 5, where we will need to build stormwater detention basins to mitigate increased channel conveyance on the main stems. The program effort includes areas along the main stem of Cypress Creek, as well as its tributaries, where the Flood Control District has property rights to conduct work. The types of channels included in the effort are either newly constructed or previously modified from their natural state. All natural channels are excluded from the program, with the exception of a few specific segments of work on the main stem. Environmental restrictions prevent work on natural channels without receiving permits that are very costly and very time-consuming to obtain. For the first 3 batches of the effort, there will be nearly 20 miles of channel improvements in the Cypress Creek watershed. As previously mentioned, there will be multiple batches of channel improvements over the course of the program life. A variety of restoration projects will take place during the life of this program, such as removing accumulated sediment from the channels, commonly referred to as conducting a desilt, replacing outfall pipes, which are conduits that carry stormwater from adjacent neighborhood ditches and storm sewer systems and convey it into flood control systems, repairing slope erosion and channel bottom scour caused by the erosive nature of fast-moving water, reestablishing maintenance berms by clearing vegetation for project and long-term maintenance access, repairing damaged concrete channel lining where needed, and removing encroachments from flood control district right-of-way so they do not obstruct stormwater conveyance or access. Each of these project types play an important role in our efforts, and we will now discuss a few of them in depth, starting with the first, nature of work that must be done before a project can take place. We understand the natural values of trees and their importance to the residents of Cypress Creek watershed, and we have worked extensively with our urban forestry team to identify tree protection zones and other best management practices for working around trees such as root pruning, air spading, and other vegetation management and vegetation removal needs. We have identified and are working to protect as many mature, sound, large, native trees as possible along the channel. We have conducted extensive vegetation removal to reestablish maintenance berms for project and long-term maintenance access, which was one of the types of maintenance activities mentioned earlier. Once project construction is complete and the sites have been stabilized, our forestry team will evaluate the sites for additional vegetation enhancements through our planting programs. I would like to mention when we discuss the batch 5 work along the main stem of Cypress Creek, we will not be able to protect the trees and vegetation as judiciously as on the other tributaries. This is because there will be more gentle slopes needed to stabilize the channel section and stormwater detention efforts constructed as part of batch 5, which will include clearing some existing trees to build the associated basins. Now we will review the batches of work that have been planned and are in various stages of execution. These batches include work to remove and dispose of sediment and make channel repairs. Construction on batch 1 kicked off in June of 2021. Work occurred over approximately 8 linear miles on 7 different channels, primarily south of Spring Cypress Drive, east of Champion Forest Drive, north of Cypress Wood, and west of TC Jester Boulevard. The construction cost for this batch was $14 million, and work was completed in late 2022, which was ahead of schedule. In this slide, you can see snapshots of the progress made on batch 1. This picture shows channel K131 or Spring Gully near Cypress Wood Drive. This slide shows additional progress we've made. This picture shows channel K133 or Dry Gully, which is just west of Champion Forest Drive. Batch 2 work included 6 miles of sediment removal and disposal and minor repairs across 9 different channels that are located generally north of Cypress Creek near State Highway 249. The cost for this batch was $3.3 million, and construction kicked off in late 2021. Like batch 1, batch 2 was also completed in late 2022, which was also ahead of schedule. Here are a couple of progress pictures from batch 2. These pictures show erosion repairs and slope restoration efforts on tributary K140, also known as Pilot Gully. This image shows an example of an outfall replacement on tributary K149. Here is an overview of the cumulative work that was completed in both batch 1 and batch 2. To summarize again, batch 1 consisted of work on 7 channels totaling 8 linear miles. We excavated and disposed of a total of 111,500 cubic yards of sedimentation. We emplaced around 107,000 tons of rock for erosion protection. And we installed nearly 15,600 linear feet of new storm sewer outfall conduits. Batch 2 consisted of 6 linear miles of channel system, providing service to 9 channels. In this batch, we excavated and disposed of a total of 13,000 cubic yards of sediment and placed nearly 7,200 tons of rock, installed around 7,200 linear feet of storm sewer outfall pipe and conduit. Now we will look at batch 3 work, which began construction last summer. This batch includes 6 linear miles of work consisting of general channel repairs and sediment removal and disposal on 12 different channels. The cost for this batch of work is $13.8 million, and the estimated completion date for construction of this batch is the summer of 2024. Here's an overview of the anticipated work that is projected for batch 3. This work will take place across 12 separate channels with more than 6 linear miles of channel work, including nearly 45,000 tons of rock to be emplaced and a total of nearly 9,000 linear feet of storm sewer conduit replacements. Here we can see a few pictures of the current progress we have made on batch 3. The first picture is of tributary K124 or Seals Gully. This part of the channel is upstream of Bridgeview Lane. The next image is of tributary K111, also known as Turkey Creek, located near the intersection of East Ritchie Road and Aldine Westfield Road. Moving to batch 4 work, we intend to award a construction contract later this summer and expect construction to begin later this fall, with an estimated completion date around the winter of 2025. The cost for this batch is currently estimated to be $13.6 million, but we will have a better understanding of the actual projected cost to construct when we award a construction contract later this year. The anticipated work for batch 4 construction will include work along 4 linear miles of channel on 8 different channels. We are estimating that we will emplace 55,000 tons of rock and replace 5,500 linear feet of storm sewer outfall conduits. Now we will briefly talk about the planned rehabilitation work on Cypress Creek included in batch 5. The rehabilitation of rectified sections of Cypress Creek will potentially be funded through Community Development Block Grant for Mitigation, commonly referred to as CDBG MIT, and Community Development Block Grants for Disaster Recovery, commonly referred to as CDBG DR. These funds will come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development via the Texas General Land Office. The CDBG-DR program has $320 million of funding, while the CDBG-MIT program has $504 million of funding. The list of projects for CDBG-MIT and CDBG-DR funds was determined by the Flood Control District, the Community Services Division, and the Harris County Commissioners Court using criteria such as low to moderate income percentages, urgent need, no right-of-way needed to be acquired, and other factors laid out by HUD and the Commissioners Court. The final list of projects was approved by Harris County Commissioners Court on June 6, 2023. The 2 projects included in batch 5 are channel stabilization projects located along 2 portions of Cypress Creek and associated stormwater detention basins to mitigate the channel stabilization improvements associated with each project. Each of these are separate CDBG lists and have their own funding timelines. However, we will now cover. The first of the 2 projects is the channel rehabilitation project that is on the CDBG-DR list. The scope of work for this project will be conducted on 2 different segments of Cypress Creek, one at Kirkendall Road and another at I-45. This project will potentially receive $20.27 million of partner funding, while the remaining $250,000 needed will come from local funds. 50% of the total funding from the CDBG-DR list must be spent in LMI census tracts or census block groups with a 51% or higher LMI index. The remaining funds could be used on urgent need projects, which is what both of these projects are considered to be. All CDBG-DR funds must be expended by June 15, 2026, meaning the project must be closed out before this date. We are currently working to determine more exact dates as we refine our project schedule and close in on a date for construction to begin. We do know at this time that this effort must end just under a little 3 years. The second of the two projects is the Stormwater Detention Basin Project, which may be funded through the CDBG MIT program, and the entire $42.36 million associated with it will be funded through this program. Like the CDBG-DR program, this program also has LMI requirements, but this project was determined to be an urgent need project. This project also has a timeline on when funds must be allocated, with 50% of the funds being spent by June 30th, 2025, and 100% of the funds being spent by March 31st, 2027. These stormwater detention basins are on property that the Flood Control District already owns and will need to be constructed before the channel rehabilitation efforts occur, so that we are not transferring flood risk from one area of the system to another. Moving on to the FEMA sediment removal program. This was a $250 million program focused on removing accumulated sediment deposition during the flooding that occurred with Hurricane Harvey. The map on the screen shows where we will be focusing our efforts once construction begins. $24.3 million of the total program is allocated to Cypress Creek across nearly 20 miles of channel. Design contracts were awarded earlier this summer, and we expect design to take between 12 and 18 months, with construction to begin after that. In addition to everything already covered, the Flood Control District received a separate $7 million grant from FEMA for the Kickerillo Mishra Preserve erosion repair project located in the Kickerillo Mishra Preserve, east of Highway 249 and north of Cypress Wood Drive. This project is comprised of erosion repairs on a segment of Cypress Creek and a sediment removal and disposal effort. The sediment removal and disposal effort is similar to the Cypress Creek Watershed Sediment Removal Programmatic Project. Like the sediment removal program, this project is also currently in the design phase. I will now turn the program back over to Sheldra to kick off the question and answer session.
Thank you, Jason. Before we move into Q&A, I do want to share a quick reminder that we are looking for your input. We'd love to hear from you on this and other projects that are moving forward across Harris County. Your input is critical as we continue to develop plans for this and other flood risk reduction efforts. All comments and questions received this evening will be considered as we develop plans for this effort, but the conversation doesn't end here. To learn more about this project, ask questions, and to sign up for our mailing list, please visit hcfcd.org/CI012. And as a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this program during tonight's session. You can submit a comment on this site in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at hcfcd.org/CI012, or you can submit a comment via phone, and that number is 855-925-2801. You'll want to utilize the meeting code 5830. And if you are joining us via phone tonight, please press star to leave a message. Additionally, I want to reiterate that any questions not addressed during our Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District following the close of the comment period. Now, information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the Flood Control District's website and also on our YouTube channel. Joining Jason for our Q&A tonight are Jason Brock, Ramon Herrera, and Oki Atada. And now it's time to take some of your questions. Our first question will be for Ramon. How were the locations selected for the different batches?
That's a great question, Sheldra. So our engineering design team completed approximately 80 miles of site assessment. So we walked 80 miles of drainage channels and basically prioritized the worst of the worst channel repairs that were needed. Those being broken pipes, blocked channels, major slope failures, broken concrete areas, just channels that are really were really in a bad state of disrepair. And so all of those were pushed up to the front in batch one, and then 2 and 3. And so those were taken care of simply because there were issues for positive drainage. There were also safety issues with access in a lot of those channels where not just for the public and adjacent communities, but also for Harris County Flood Control District maintenance crews.
Thank you, Ramon. Next question is for Jason Brock. How were the batches put in order? What factors were looked at to decide which work goes in what batch?
Good evening, and I think Ramon hit on a little bit on that already. But one other thing that was considered, of course, was we're trying to maximize the number of crews and the work that was being done. So we're breaking up that scope into different batches, and so we're also looking at geography. We're gonna batch those projects up that are close together, and Ramon hit on a lot of the factors that had to do with the channel restoration.
All right, thank you, Jason. Ramon, we'll come back to you. Can you talk about the project timeline starting from batch 1 to batch 5?
Yes, absolutely, Sheldra. So batch 1 and batch 2 were already completed in late 2022. Batch 3 initiated construction in July of 2022 with the expected completion date set for summer of 2024. Batch 4 is out for bids this summer. It's scheduled to begin this fall and is expected to be completed by winter of 2025. And then finally, batch 5, which is the main stem of Cypress Creek, that construction will be completed by the spring of 2026.
All right, thank you for that, Ramon. I do want to take a moment to thank all the residents who took time to join us tonight. All of the questions that you are submitting tonight are part of the meeting record, and we will respond to each and every question submitted. The questions that we don't answer tonight may be very specific, for instance, about your particular home or your particular neighborhood. So Richard, thank you for your question. We will need to take some time to research this after the meeting, and we will respond to you individually. So please keep the questions coming. Our next question is for Jason Cron. Jason, can you talk about Cypress Creek being a natural channel and what that means generally, and how that affects what the flood control district can and can't do easily to the channel?
I sure can, Sheldra. Thank you for that question. Typically on our natural channels, we really focus on keeping open the flow, and we really don't try to go in and rectify and change the kind of any of the natural features occurring, other than just keeping open the flow, removing in debris and stuff like that. As mentioned earlier, we will have to, in batch 5, go in and work a couple sections that have been previously touched, and we will need to make some modifications in those isolated sections. But for the most part, we do not go in and do a lot of active construction on our natural channels.
All right, thank you for that. Going to our next question here, reading down, we're getting a lot of questions coming in. So Jason Brock, this is outside of your maintenance efforts, but are you aware of the status of the Mercer Basin? We had that question come in. If not, then we can get back to that viewer as well.
I am not. I'm not aware of the status of Mercer.
All right, we do appreciate that question, and we'll follow up with you following the meeting. Let's go on to our next question. Let's see. Ramon, Leander is asking if there are any sediment removal efforts planned for areas east of 249 to Interstate 69 along Cypress Creek.
So it's a great question. I think we have a slide in the presentation showing the FEMA sediment removal. I'm not sure we can go back to that slide, but that clearly shows. I
can jump in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is sediment removal planned east of 249.
Yeah, there it is.
Downstream to about Kirkendall.
All right, thank you guys for that. I'm reading ahead to our next question here. Let's see, Jason Brock, in batch 5, will let's see, what will be the nature of the laid back banks along Cypress Creek? Will they be grass or trees?
Yeah, the side slopes will be laid back to what our geotechnical engineer recommends for a stable side slope, which is typically a 5-to-1 side slope. They will be grass, and then we will be looking at also coming back and planting trees as well along the upper side slope.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see, Jason Brock, Stephen is asking if you can describe the Kikarillo erosion repair project in more detail. Will it prevent flooding in the Prestonwood Forest subdivision?
Sure. So the Kikarillo project has a lot to do with erosion repairs on the north and south side, but as Jason Cron mentioned, it will include sediment removal as well. So there's areas that were identified as part of the FEMA project that received damages from Hurricane Harvey, and those are the areas that we are focused on now.
Okay, and just a follow-up question here from Kevin is asking if the Kikarillo project work is on both banks. Is this affecting completion of the paved trail on the south bank?
There is work on the north and south banks of Cypress Creek. I'm not aware of any impacts to completion of the trail.
Okay, Jason Brock, another question for you. A resident is asking if we can define what CDBG-DR means.
Community block grant development. That's a disaster recovery. That was the two different types of funding. You either had disaster recovery or you had MIT, which was the mitigation.
I always have to say that very, very slowly. So thank you for explaining that to us. Let's see, Lucas, thank you for your question. And yes, a copy of this presentation will be on the Flood Control District's website, and we will link that following the presentation. Let's see if we have some more questions coming in. I do want to give you a reminder of a couple of ways that you can reach out to us tonight on how you can submit a comment. You're able to do that on the Flood Control District's website, and you're also able to do that on the presentation live stream. There's a box there. You can also submit a comment via phone. That number 855-925-2801. You'll want to make sure you utilize the meeting code 5830. And again, if you are joining us via phone tonight, you'll want to press star to leave a message. Again, I want to remind folks that if we're not able to address your questions tonight, we'll reach out to you individually following the close of the comment period. And as someone just reached out and wanted to know where you'll be able to watch this presentation after we close, and that will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel. So let's see if we've got some more questions coming in. This next question will be for Jason Brock. Mr. Black is complimenting our presentation. Well, this is a comment. And he's also asking for the CDBG-DR funded detention mitigation at Kirkendall and I-45. Does HCFCD already own all of the necessary right-of-way?
Yes, Flood Control owns the right-of-way on the downstream side of Kirkendall.
All right. Go to another question. Ramon, can you maybe run us through the timeline again for folks who are just tuning in to the meeting tonight?
Sure, Sheldon, no problem. Probably went through a little too fast. So again, the timeline, as Jason Cron described in great detail, there are 5 batches. So batch 1 and batch 2 have been completed. Those were completed in late 2022. Batch 3 initiated construction in July of 2022, and it's under construction now. It will be completed in summer of 2024, so in 1 year. Batch 4 will begin this fall of 2023, and it will be completed by winter of 2025. And finally, batch 5 construction will be completed in spring of 2026.
Good deal. Thank you for that. Jason Brock. David is asking in Cypress Creek, in the Cypress Creek area, how much expenditure has gone to and remains to achieve original design water carrying capacity. When will the carrying capacity be sufficient to handle a repeat of Hurricane Harvey? So a couple of questions in there.
Yeah, I would say that, one of the major projects that we did complete on Cypress Creek itself was at the Inverness Forest Levee, which is on, downstream of IH 45, Interstate 45. That project was about $12 million to restore it to its original design capacity. Most other efforts on Cypress Creek, as Jason mentioned, would be more type of just side slope repair at certain areas. So we're not necessarily restoring the Cypress Creek channel back to its original design.
Thank you for that, Jason. Let's see. Next question is for Ramon, and Jim is asking approximately how many acre feet of detention will be required to accommodate the bank changes in batch 5?
That's a great question. So right now our H&H study is still ongoing while we're doing preliminary engineering design. There will be obviously tension mitigation needed, but that we don't know the answer to that at this time. That's in progress.
All right, thank you for that. Let's see if we have a couple of more questions coming in. And again, folks, we've got about, I guess, a little bit more than 10 minutes left in tonight's meeting. So if you haven't sent a question in just yet, you still have some time to get your questions and your comments into us. Again, the different ways that you can reach out to us are there on your screen. I believe we had a question about sediment removal, and I'm scrolling up my long screen here to be able to find that, and then we'll be able to ask that question. Unless someone wants to pull it down to the bottom of the chat where I can have access to it. All right, so if we're talking about sediment, I believe the question was what happens with that as it's being excavated or being dug up?
I can take that one.
Thanks, Jason.
So our contractors will dispose of material at sites that have been approved by our environmental department, and also sites that are located outside of the 500-year floodplain.
Thank you for that, Jason. We may have already, this question might have already been touched on, but why is this being broken down into batches in the manner that it has been? And anyone can jump in on that one.
I can jump in on that. I think just kind of as mentioned, looking at the watershed in its entirety, looking at the location of the work and being able to put sites geographically close to each other to include in one project makes it more advantageous for the contractor getting out to the site, doing the work, as well as gearing the type of work that's being done in the batch to being similar. It makes it more advantageous and easier to bid that type of work out, secure a contractor, and also it's not too big of an effort that it limits the types of contractors that can pursue that work. So it's just a way for us to kind of geographically lump the work together, the type of work, as well as location, and bid it out to the contracting community.
Thank you for that, Jason. We are getting some questions coming in that are very specific to your location. So again, I just want to remind you that if we're not able to get to that level of detail on your specific area, we will be answering those questions after tonight's meeting. We'll do a little research and then we'll get back to you individually with those answers. All right, so I see a couple of more questions coming in. Let's see, Jason Cron, Leander is inquiring about the large diameter tunnels. Are we prepared to give any type of update on that?
My division and the folks who are at the meeting tonight are all focused on the maintenance side of efforts. And the tunnel studies that the district's looking into are associated with the capital improvement side of the district. So another group that's managing that. We do have pretty good information on the tunnels on our website. It's being updated as new information comes out, and we have no other information to share on that capital improvement effort at this time tonight.
Gotcha, Jason. All right, Jason Brock. Mr. Black is asking how much HCFCD funding is required for the $250 million sediment removal program.
If we do receive all the funding sources, because there is an additional funding source from the state, then out of the $250 million, flood control would be looking at about $6.5 million funding.
Thank you for that.
As our local match.
Gotcha. Ramon, Jim is asking, can you please estimate approximately how far back the top bank will be shifted in the implementation of batch 5?
Yeah, so it's a good question. The design is still pretty preliminary. Our geotechnical engineer is working through the slope stability analysis, and that's being reviewed by the geotechnical engineer at the district. It's just going to be enough to have stable slopes, obviously to have adequate maintenance berms per the design guidelines. Everything's going to be within the flood control right away. So we don't want to disturb vegetation that's not needed to be disturbed. That's still being worked through in our design package.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see, we are getting some questions about capital projects in Cypress Creek. Just want to let you know we have received your question. We hear you, and we're going to get back to you with more information on that. Let's see, we've got about 7 more minutes left, and I'm going to throw Jason Cron a little, well, not too much of a trick, but just in case people are just joining us, Jason, I wondered if you can kind of go back to the part where we started to talk about this project and kind of give us sort of a quick overview for people who may have logged on after we had already covered that.
You talking about the summary of the batch work that was done?
Yes, I think it was right after you transitioned from overview on flood control and started with the details about this specific project. We'll give Jason just a second and Lorna to get that queued up with where that started in our presentation. And while we're doing that, I do want to continue to remind you that we'd love to hear from you. So take the opportunity to reach out to us via the screen, the public input page where the meeting is being presented, as well as our website and also via phone. And then again, we aren't able to answer your questions tonight. Some things take a little bit more digging if it's in a specific area. So we want to take the time to get you that accurate information and then follow up with you after the meeting.
In regards to just the overview and looking at this, we did look at the work after assessing the entirety of Cypress Creek, doing an assessment of all systems in the Cypress Creek watershed. We broke that down and found that it would be most advantageous to break that out into 5 work packages, which is a way we've kind of compartmentalized the work and are putting it out. With the initial funding on that being around $60 million in additional funding that's available, as well with the CDBG DR and CDBG MIT funding that's coming out. So The overall program includes the 5 batches. The first 2 are wrapping up construction. The 3rd batch is in construction now. The 4th batch is going to be coming out to construction. I know Ramon covered the kind of the schedule on this earlier. And then the 5th batch is under design and forthcoming. So that kind of encapsulates the program. We hit on a couple of other things tonight as well on the bond program, as well as the FEMA settlement work that's been taking place. And then finally, the additional work taking place, or that's scheduled for the Kickerillo Mission Preserve work that's out there. So I think that kind of covers a summary of everything we kind of talked about tonight.
All right, good deal. Thank you so much, Jason, for going back over that. I know sometimes we get people who come in a little bit later and may have missed that part. But again, as a reminder, we will have the materials from this meeting, including the PowerPoint presentation, as well as a link to the live stream available on our website. So you'll be able to go back and view anything that you might have missed. Let's see if we have a couple of more questions come in. We've got just a few more minutes left in tonight's meeting, so you still have a little bit more time to reach out to us and let us know if you have a question or a comment that you would like addressed tonight. Let's see here. All right, so for Jason Brock, for the Kickerillo project, how much funding did the flood control district receive for this project?
As of now, the FEMA has provided around $7 million.
Okay.
That includes both erosion repairs and sediment removal.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that project again, Jason?
Sure. So that there's two aspects to that project segment. There are repairs that are happening on the north and south banks. It's about from Highway 249 downstream about 4,500 feet to 5,000 feet. And so it also, we're repairing areas that were damaged from Hurricane Harvey, and then we'll be removing a lot of sediment that was deposited as a result of Hurricane Harvey in that project segment.
Thank you, Jason. And for batch 5, here's another question that we just received that just came in. So we do appreciate that. And again, this is for Jason Brock. For batch 5, will there be any more land that's needed to be acquired at or near Kirkendall?
At this time, there is no additional right-of-way anticipated that's needed to be acquired.
Thank you for that. One more questions in here. Reading this side. And again, we're just checking our system to make sure we have all of your questions. Again, getting some great questions coming in from a specific location. And again, I know we've said it a couple of times already, but we want to make sure that we do see your questions coming in and we are paying attention to them. It's just that they may require a little bit more digging if they're more focused on a specific area instead of our overall meeting target project tonight. And I think that was about our last question that we have. So again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you for all of your involvement tonight with sending us your comments and questions. I do want to share one final reminder, and that's that the comment period associated for this meeting, it runs through August 9th, but of course, we're always looking for your input and for your engagement. And also, we encourage everyone to get flood insurance as flood season in Harris County runs year-round. Thank you again for joining us this evening and for all of your feedback. We look forward to continuing to share updates as our work moves forward. Thanks to all of our presenters tonight, and everyone at home, stay safe and have a great evening.